Hello again out there to all my beautiful people. This is Natalie Silva with Life Treasures and Golden Moments, where I always share with you true stories of miracles and stories of inspiration. Thanks for tuning in today. I have another great story for you today, and it's called An Angel's Kiss, and it was authored by Susan Duncan. Hope you enjoy it. The first Christmas without Mom was going to be difficult. She had been the heart of the family, and her sudden death earlier that year had numbed all of us who loved her, especially my usually strong father, who had been reduced to a mere fragment of himself. My mother had adored Christmas and had always made it a festive and memorable holiday. While I was growing up, she had filled our home with decorative holiday splendor and delicious aromas of holiday treats, and the merry sound of her voice singing favorite Christmas carols. She had expressed a childlike jubilance over the Christmas season that had never faded with all the years. Her inherent generosity was especially apparent during the holidays. The void left by the passing of our beautiful blonde angel, who always saw the good in every human being and whose warmth had drawn people to her, would be most sorely felt at Christmas. As the holiday approached, I tried my best to emulate my mother's Christmas spirit, hoping to ease my family's sorrow by continuing her joyous tradition. I felt that I had especially needed to stay strong for my children and for my devastated father. To cope with my own sadness, I kept busy. As Christmas drew nearer, however, I felt it increasingly difficult to contain my grief. My 40-minute drive to work each morning was particularly tough, as it allowed me too much time to think. I'd envision my mother baking Santa cookies or stirring popcorn for the tree or giggling at her ingenuity in finding the perfect gift for one of us, and my heart would ache. Try as I did to push away those tender memories, they just crept back in. Turning on the radio was no help. The first few bars of a familiar Christmas tune would trigger a deluge of tears. My mind flashed on scenes of happier holidays I had known as a child. I recalled the warm, cozy Christmases both in my parents' home and at my grandma's house, when our whole family was there together. My grandmother's old-fashioned turn-of-the-century brownstone in Woodhaven, Queens, had been about an hour's drive from our house. I always thought Grandma's quaint town resembled a Dickinson village during Christmas time. I remembered how the bells at St. Thomas, the Episcopal Church, where my grandmother was a member, chimed in succession in one key, bong, 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 then half an octave higher, bong, bong, bong. Grandma had always placed a white tabletop Christmas tree in the window of her front room. The lights on the tree were candle-shaped glass tubes filled with different colors of liquid. When the tree was plugged in, they bubbled, much to the delight of us grandchildren. The Victrola in the living room just off the front room played Grandma's original 78 RPM records like Jimmy Boyd's I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus and Bing Crosby's White Christmas. Bombarded with those memories, I felt myself slipping into a complete despair. "Oh, Mom, oh, Grandma," I silently cried. "I miss you both so much. Please, I need you to be here with me." Just then, an old woman standing by a stop sign on the side of the street began to frantically flag me down. I stopped my car at the sign, and to my astonishment, the woman opened my unlocked car door and sat down in the passenger seat beside me. She told me that her bus had never arrived at the bus stop, and she was cold. Something about that woman seemed vaguely familiar. She asked me to take her to the local church. Though I was befuddled, I sensed no danger, and I agreed to give her a ride. As we drove, I asked her where she was from. "Well, I'm originally from Woodhaven," she replied. That was what was familiar. She had the same warm tone of voice, unmistakable Queen's accent that my grandmother had had. When I stopped at the next red light, I turned to look at the woman's face and found myself looking right into my mother's eyes. They were the same hazel shade as my mother's and glowed softly with the same kindness. These were the eyes that had comforted me when I was upset, twinkled with joy over my happiness, and radiated with love throughout my life. Shaken and confused, I pulled over to the side of the road to gather my wits. Suddenly I broke down sobbing. I told her of my grief and my haunting memories. The old woman comforted me, patting me on my back and cooing reassurances. The experience felt entirely surreal. After a short time, I regained my composure and apologized to the poor woman, who I was certain was regretting her decision to get in my car. But she seemed unperturbed by my outburst, and her calm demeanor led me to believe many others had probably cried upon her shoulder. Feeling calmer, if still shaken, I was able to drive a short distance to her destination. We spent a few minutes parked in front of the church, talking and reminiscing about Christmases and what happened. The woman knew exactly where my grandmother lived and had also been a member of St. Thomas Church. She also agreed that Woodhaven looked like a Dickens village during the holidays. Our conversation turned from the past to the present, and she told me about her late husband, her children, and her grandchildren, about her difficulty adjusting to living in the suburbia. Too soon it seemed it was time for us to go. The woman placed her hand on the door handle to exit my car, then stopped and said she would pray for my family and for me. Then she gently kissed me on the cheek. As she stepped out of the car and onto the sidewalk, I realized I didn't know her name. When I called out to ask, she turned back, smiled sweetly, and said, "Dorothy." I stared at her, dumbstruck, as she slowly walked up the church steps and disappeared through its arched doors. Dorothy was both my mother and grandmother's names. As I pulled away from the church and continued my drive to work, a great weight seemed to lift from my shoulders. A profound sense of comfort and peace cradled me throughout the holiday season and for all those to come. On the first Christmas without my mother, I received a message of hope and eternal love sent by my Christmas angels through the open heart of a complete stranger. I hope this story today warmed your heart and lifted your spirits and helped you to enrich your life. Look around you. There's miracles everywhere. Until next time, take care, have a beautiful week, and may God bless. This is Natalie Silver with Life Treasures and Golden Moments.